Welcome to the Kingdom Purpose Coaching Show.
Great show today. We are talking about the art of leverage.
The art of leverage. You are going to love it. It's going to be so helpful. It's going to help you get to the next level in your business, in your life, in your family, in your finances, all the things.
It's going to be awesome.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Purpose Coaching Show. I am so glad to have you on here with us today. Today we're actually talking about Grant's favorite topic.
That's right. My favorite topic. It is
the world.
Leverage.
Leverage. We don't finish each other's sandwiches.
Did we say last week that rhythm was our favorite?
Well, you
topic?
tried to say that, but
And
I
2
was
weeks
telling
ago,
you that
favorite. We have
rhythm,
a lot of favorites.
We do have a lot of we have a lot of favorites. But last week I was telling you that rhythm is revolutionary.
Oh, yeah.
That rhythm revolutionized our life. But leverage is actually your favorite thing to talk about. So the trifecta we mentioned last week, we're talking about habits, rhythm, and then today is all about leverage. I am telling you, if you can get this stuff down into your career, your life could change. Bold statement.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something more bold, like you'll win the lottery.
Oh my gosh, no. So let's kind of begin. I mentioned this last week too, that, oftentimes people will come and they'll say, oh my gosh, Rachel, how do you do all these things? You're doing so many things. How do you do it all? And we talked about how, number one, I don't do it all. And I did not elaborate on that because I wanted to talk to you guys about it this week and really kind of just taking a moment, a quick blurb to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, because the Proverbs 31 woman, she is a revolutionary visionary, in my opinion. And I posted a video on social media a couple weeks ago about the Proverbs 31 woman, and the comments have been very interesting. They have been very...
Some people love it.
A lot of people loved it. Most people loved it. But a few people had a challenge with it. And I understood because their interpretation of the Proverbs 31 woman was that God was telling women they have to do all of these things to be good. And I'm like, whoa, girls, no, that is not what this is saying. The Proverbs 31 woman is the ideal, but she was not doing it alone. She had an army of people. Okay, not an army. She was not Mulan, but she had a team of people with her that were helping her. It says, the Bible says that she got up early and tended to her household. And this was not just her children. This were the people helping, I'm assuming, cleaning her house, helping her gather food and make food. She did all these amazing things and she was not doing it alone. And so today we're talking about how you can not do it alone. Yeah. That's so important.
Yeah. That's so good. Is there anything else about the Proverbs 31 that you want to tell us what it says?
Well, Proverbs 31, really it was Bathsheba telling Solomon what to look for in a wife. And it was actually, if you look at the Hebrew of it, it is listed out kind of like the Hebrew alphabet. So if we did, what are those called, like acronyms or whatever, where each letter stands for something different. If we did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z, and these are the things, buddy, you need to look for in a wife, that's what it's actually written as so that he could remember it. Now, Solomon had an interesting follow-through on this particular, if you know much about Solomon's life, he found a lot of wives who could do these things. He had a lot of wives. But Bathsheba was saying, look, man, this is what you are looking for. And really what it's talking about is a woman who can, buy and sell real estate. She actually knows how to count the cost of an investment. Yeah. She knows how to clothe her children. She has enough going on to clothe her children in fine clothes. Ladies, a lot of you guys probably need to take that as a word to the Lord, from the Lord, because I remember, I'm being silly, but like, it's true. I remember at one point in my life being like, I wish my kids could wear cool clothes. Like, we have no extra money to buy something that's not, from Walmart or whatever. And then I started realizing that God has equipped us with the ability to go and gift our children things. Yeah. That's like a real principle of the Proverbs 31 woman.
Yeah. Gosh, that's good.
Yeah. But she can't do it alone, and neither can you. So let's talk about how you can leverage so that you can actually expand your life.
Right. So generally speaking, if you want to do something amazing, you can almost never do it alone. Look at everybody.
Wait, you just breezed on by that. Slow that down.
Generally speaking, if you want to do something amazing, you cannot do it alone. You need a team. Okay. So look at the fastest person in the world who runs. They got a team. Look at the people who win races. They got a team. Look at people who are doing great business things. They got a team. Look at people doing amazing family. There's a team everywhere you're looking.
Your favorite movie star has like 8 people working for them at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why not you, right? Like, you got to embrace that. If you want to do amazing things, you can't do it alone. You got to have a team around you.
And can we just pause for a second and just release the shame that you thought you were supposed to do it alone?
Right.
And I think that's something that the American dream has caused a lot of confusion about, is this idea that like we're supposed to do it alone, right? That it's more, it looks better, it's more impressive if we're a self-made man or woman. And nobody is truly self-made. So if we can just get out of that mindset completely, you can actually begin to really accelerate your life.
Yeah, that's great. So here's a little bit of how I started to learn some more about leverage. So a few years ago, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years.
5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, take your pick.
It was 3.
In that season of business specifically, the whole year, I was like, God, what are you teaching me? What am I supposed to learn? The whole year. This is the year of leverage. You need to learn leverage. Can't do great things without leverage. And so it's just constantly the whole year long. I remember the very first time that I started to learn leverage was in business. Real estate sales was going good. We'd started a brokerage, and I needed some help. I couldn't do it all. And so I hired somebody who's phenomenal. She's amazing.
Rockstar.
But at the time, it was more difficult to train her than it was for me just to do most of the tasks that I needed done. So when you start to leverage, a lot of times there's this like pressure that happens where, you know, kind of like when a plane takes off, right before takeoff, it's the most turbulent, the most bumpy. But if you can take off, that's when, you know, amazing things happen. That's exactly how it is with leverage. You're like, okay, I can pull somebody in to do this, and it's difficult, it's tough, it's challenging. It probably takes more time than if you just did it yourself. It's not as good if you just did it yourself. It's, it's like, it's frustrating. But if you press long enough, that's when the leverage can begin to start to happen. And so fast forward 5 years down the road with the business, like my mind cannot understand what the Lord has done with our businesses. And I don't know, 1,000%, 999% leverage. Like leverage is the key to doing these things and being able to advance the kingdom of God in the ways that we dream. Like we have huge, huge dreams of doing things with God. And we simply cannot ever possibly get there if we don't learn leverage really, really well.
Yeah, it is so true. And, you know, we actually, we have been through this multiple times where you are trying to find the right person, right? And I know, Grant, you love to say that one of the hardest parts of growth is finding the right people to grow with you. And it's very, very challenging. But honestly, we have 2 goals of today's episode. And one is to help convince you how important it is to have good people around you who can help you. I mean, the idea that the way that we live in 2023 is so far from how the world has lived over thousands of years. And it really is a newer concept. And I don't know exactly when, but definitely in the early 1900s, because pre-1900, you would not ever consider living in your household with just your spouse, and that's it. Like your kids grow up, you know, you always had your elderly parents living with you, or a child living with you, or, you know, there was a whole idea that together as a family, we are helping one another, the village mentality. And it's really been in the last 100 some years that we've adopted this idea that we can just be either completely on our own or, you know, raise kids on our own. Like, this is crazy and I've been there, we've done this, but it's so much harder to do it on your own. And so one of the main goals today is to help convince you of what your life could be like if you began to add people in to help advance your life. And it doesn't have to only be paid positions. I mean, I remember when we were in youth ministry years ago, we were living in Texas, and we had people living with us. We would have college-age students come and live in our home, and they would help. We had kind of like a quid pro quo relationship where we would give them super cheap rent, like $50 a month sometimes. And in exchange, they would babysit one night a week. Like if it, you know, depending on the person who lived with us, but sometimes that was the arrangement. Sometimes it was just that they would run to the grocery store for us when we needed something. It allowed us to do so much more by having other people with us, because at that point in time, we did not have family around us. Now, I'm definitely not suggesting you just go find a college person and move them into your home. There's a lot more to it than that. But that's one example of how you can leverage even if you don't have the money to pay somebody right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's a good where to start? How do you begin leverage? If you're doing nothing to leverage currently, where the heck do you start?
Yeah, I think there's a couple questions you can ask yourself. And you guys know at this point, we are huge fans of asking good questions. I heard this quote recently. Powerful people know the answer is always behind the question. And so, a lot of times we want to tell people, hey, here's what you need to know. But it is so much more powerful if we will just be asked a question and think about it on our own. So I want to ask you some questions. You can answer them right now in your mind. You can write them down and ask them with the Lord later, however you want to do it. But the first one is, how much more time do you actually need in your day? Like, what actually are you trying to accomplish? So, you've probably heard the quote, Beyonce has the same 24 hours a day that you do. And, the same is true for any person that you can think of that we think is, I actually don't think Beyonce is doing very much.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. Like, what is she doing?
She's like, I don't know.
Vacationing all
She's
the time.
vacationing a lot. Yeah. So, of course she has 24 hours a day.
Somebody else.
Yeah. Let's pick like, I don't know, like Mother Teresa, who's in heaven now. Guys, it's not good. We're going to skip on this. But we all have the same, this is what we're trying to say. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. And my question to you, number one, is how much more time do you actually need? So you might need like 2 hours a week so that you can just craft and build up a side hustle on your own. You might need 3 hours, a day because you are trying to really build a business. I don't know, whatever the case may be. Number one, identify how much more time that you need. And then number two, you have to identify what are your non-negotiables. So what are the things that you are absolutely not going to negotiate on? This would be like, no matter what, I will always be the person to do this. Let me give you an example. For me in my life, and I'm not saying anybody else has to have this, it's just my personal non-negotiable, I will be the person who picks my kids up from school until they're driving their own car. That I can't explain to you why. I don't have time to get into it. But for me, that is like, it will be me. Could I pay somebody to do it? Absolutely. Do I have a number of people in my life? We're very blessed to have some amazing, trustworthy people who could go do that for me. Yeah, I do. But that's not going to be something on the list because even though it might add an extra hour and a half to my day, because yes, I'm in the car doing pickups for an hour and a half every day. The difference that it makes is in the eternal long-term benefit for my children in the relationship that I'm building with them. So that's not a place I'm going to leverage. Yep. But I do non-negotiable. I don't ever want to mop my floor again. That's not exactly how the non-negotiable works. But it would be
a little strong.
It would be the dream of my life, Lord Jesus, to never be the person to mop my own floor again. I don't know. I can do a lot of chores well. That one, I just have very murderous thoughts that come into my mind. It's not good. And so, for you, it might be cooking dinner every night. For you, it might be cleaning your house. It might be driving your car, whatever it is. But identify what are the things that you absolutely will do because they matter that much to you. So first, identify how much more time do you need. Second, identify what are your non-negotiables. And then the third thing you're going to do, and you can speak to this, is you're going to identify what your hourly rate is. Mm-hmm. This is a big one.
Yeah. So that one's really simple. Basically, you're like, I don't have enough money to do that. I feel stressed with my money. Just figure out how much did you earn last year? Roughly how much is your time worth? And then divide that by the number of hours, work hours in a year. Okay, you can Google that quickly; it'll pull up the exact number. But just divide that by the number. Figure out how many dollars per hour on average are you earning every year. And then look at the things that you're hoping to be able to leverage. If there's something that is that you could get done by hiring a $10 an hour, or a $15 an hour, or a $20 per hour type of person, even just little bits, a couple hours a week, that kind of a thing. If you are earning more than what that is, take the risk. Like, don't be scared to take that risk and to invest in that person, because if you are wise, you'll be able to give them that, but then do the things that you're really good at that can actually create more money than what you're currently earning right now. Because so much of our time is administrative, like stuff that maybe doesn't bring you life, isn't as fun. It's a lot of other people around you could easily do that very same thing. You want to look at your life and say, okay, what did God give me? What am I good at? What am I gifted at? What am I uniquely gifted with that I can bring to the table and bring value to whatever we're trying to do here? And then spend more of your time on that. Hopefully, the dream, for a lot of people is try to get the 70% of your time is spent doing those things, 80% of your time doing the thing that you are best at, and then finding creative ways to leverage other people. And I do just want to say again, when you start, it's going to be painful. If you've never leveraged before, it's going to be painful. They're not going to do it exactly like you want it. They're not going to be as efficient as you want it to be. They're not going to, tilt the decoration this way that you like. It's never going to be perfect. But if you will fight through the difficulty, it can become really, really worth it, exponentially better than without it. Okay, so it's worth the fight to get through it, to get up off the ground, so that you can take off in a good way like that. We heard this question recently. Let's say if you have a business, but I think you could also say it maybe for ministry. Maybe, I don't know. But for your business, can your business grow without you? Okay, so that's kind of like the hallmark of is what's a real business like. A real business is one that's kind of running and you can take off. It doesn't need you day to day. So can it grow without you? Can it run without you? That's one question. Can it grow without you? That's a different question. And that's like a whole nother level of learning to leverage people, systems, resources in order to let that take off even without you behind the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, the other question in that realm to ask is what's the cost of your stress? And I don't know that you can put a dollar amount on it, but if we're still holding on to this idea that great business owners, great, employees, great whatever it is that you are in your job, that they do it all on their own, then you are paying a high price for the stress that you have. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about leveraging, we're talking about offloading some of the things that really cause you stress. And that happens in a couple of different ways. Number one, when we're doing things that we're fundamentally not good at, and it's harder for us to do it because we're not good at it. It is challenging for us. And so it takes us twice as long sometimes to do the thing that somebody else could do very quickly because they're better at it. That's one of the places that we need to look at leveraging the first, because we can hold on to things way longer and slow ourselves down in growing our businesses or our careers, whatever, because of that. And so, what is the cost of your stress? It's so important to actually think about, if I'm constantly thinking I have to do all of these things and you are already at max capacity, where do you go from here? You have no margin to even grow. So if you're thinking, I want to make more money, but your schedule is already completely booked and you cannot add any more, what's going to happen? The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to do less, because eventually your body is going to start revolting against you. Eventually your body is going to say, hey, look, I can't do this anymore. And so the only way to continue to grow is actually to bring people in and to leverage.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting too, like, some people, maybe your schedule is very full, and you want to leverage, but you want to leverage so you can do nothing for a day.
Yeah.
Listen, days off and free days are powerful, especially in the world of an entrepreneur or a leader of a ministry or business. Free days are extremely powerful. I'm in this coaching program, and they say, look, free days are possibly the most important thing that you can possibly do, because it gives you fuel so that you can launch out from that place and be creative, and you can think well, and you can work hard, and you can be extremely productive when you are focused and working. So even leveraging to be able to give yourself a little space, like, that's okay, and that's good, and it's right.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that, an example of that would be like, who mows your lawn? Because if you have a Saturday off, but you're filling it with yard work and you don't like yard, if you love yard work, fill it. Totally fine. Mm-hmm. But if that's a drain to you, and then you don't actually have a day off, you've got to have at least one day off, because physically you cannot maintain that. It's just, it's going to affect negatively your relationships and your family relationships, and then eventually your career, and eventually your ability to have money, and eventually your quality of life. It's all very intertwined. And so, you can get creative with it. So we got one final question, then we're going to talk about some of the practical ways that you can actually draw people in to leverage and where to find them. But let me just rephrase these questions, rehash them. Number one, how much more time do you need in your day? Number two, what are your non-negotiables? Number three, what's your hourly rate? Number four, what are the obstacles to your leveraging plan? What are the obstacles? Now, this one, I cannot hype enough, because the difference between successful people and people who are not successful yet, the difference is their ability to move through the obstacles. Every single person in life experiences challenges. No matter how successful they are, they experience challenges. And the difference is not that they don't experience challenges, it's that they know how to not be held back by them. They know how to recover quickly. They know how to pivot and re-strategize. They're not bothered by the obstacles because they know they're going to come. So how do you get to that place? You start listing the obstacles down, and you make plans to actually deal with them.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, identifying them, putting a name to them, writing them out, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And to allow yourself then to creatively think about it. So practically, how do you find people?
Yeah. So, again, you're going to identify who are you looking for. And I remember and I want to say this applies no matter where you are in life. I mean, right now, our leveraging system looks like we have multiple businesses. So we have a number of people that we have in our sphere that are like running a lot of day-to-day operations. But, back 6-7 years ago, leverage looked like signing my kid up for Mother's Day out. My youngest kid, the other kids were in school, or even go back even farther than that when we were in ministry and I was a stay-at-home mom. And I remember feeling so guilty about taking my kids to Mother's Day out because I'm like, this is what I do. I'm their caregiver. But can I just tell you how much better of a mother I was by having 4 hours a week, 4 hours a week to go to the grocery store by myself, or God forbid, go get a pedicure once every 3 months? I mean, life transformational. And the reason is because you get a little bit of space, your brain can breathe, and life begins to get to be great. So we can talk about identifying sources for leveraging, if it's childcare, if it's accounting, if it's administrators, if it's social media managers. Like, you really have to begin by identifying who you need. So you take these 4 questions and then you funnel it into, okay, what am I looking for? And I do want to say, before you maybe talk about some of the websites that we use, is our very first hire, our very first hire ever, actually, for our businesses was that Michaela? It was the very first one. And so
we tried.
Oh yeah, we tried a few, but like the long-term hire that actually worked. I remember that she had been our nanny. She was a friend of a friend, and she was 19 years old, and she was babysitting for us. And I would come home and I would like look at what she was accomplishing with my children, and my children are master negotiators. And I'm like, you are the first person we have ever had babysit in 10 years who actually got my daughter to go into her room at bedtime at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on? And I started asking her questions, and she said, well, I just told them this is what we're supposed to do, and this is going to happen. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm getting texts from my kids. Are you kidding me? Please don't let her babysit us again, because she's making us do all these things. And I said, guys, I asked her to do these things. She's just implementing my instruction. And all of a sudden, it was like a light bulb moment. I remember saying to you, this woman has like some major potential here because she follows directions. This little girl knew nothing about administration, knew nothing about any of the things that we needed her to do, but she could follow directions better than anybody I knew at that time. And she was responsible. She was teachable, coachable. So we were like, hey, what do you think about no longer being our nanny and coming over here and working in our business? And thanks to her, we have, exploded our business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they can come from the most unlikely places.
Right. Yeah. So, yes, like, and I remember when we did that, that was scary. It was terrifying to pay that money regularly. It was like, oh Lord, I hope this works out, but it allowed me to leverage myself, and my goodness. Yeah, the rest is history. So I'm just going to blaze through these. A couple practicals, like, where do you find people? There's a ton of websites, hopefully you know about them, but there's like virtual assistants all over the world that you can pay less than minimum wage, like sometimes $2 an hour, $4 an hour, $6 an hour, for people who have master's degrees in other countries, and that's a lot of money for them.
And we're not saying that you should not value the finances of somebody. We're not saying go look for the cheapest that's out there. You just should know that there are people out there who are willing to work for a very small amount of money because they're doing it on the side, or they're doing it for 2 hours. Yeah.
And be super loyal and faithful and work their tails off. But it takes a lot of trial and error, a lot of working, don't be afraid to be very clear with what you need. And if it's not working, move quickly, make changes quickly with that. So that's available. There's tons of people who, honestly, I think a quick Google search will answer your question of where to find these people. One of our interesting ones is when you find amazing people, don't be afraid to look at your situation. And even if you don't have a need for that person, to go ahead and pull the trigger and find a way to keep them around to help leverage whatever you're doing. So sometimes you come across people, they're kind of like unicorns. They just have amazing personality. They seem to be very responsible, very easy to get along with. And that's not super often that happens. If that happens, pay attention and ask the Lord, should I do something here? Because maybe you should, and maybe they're going to help you get to that next level in these amazing ways, even things that you maybe don't know if they're good at, So don't be afraid of that kind of a thing.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up by let me just share with you this thought about leveraging. A lot of times when we think about leverage, we think about how it benefits us. but we don't think about how it benefits the other person. So you might have somebody in your life that's looking to make a little bit of extra money by coming and cleaning your house or mowing your lawn. Or, you might have a teenager in your neighborhood that's looking to walk your dog somewhere, whatever the case may be. Like when you make the decision to leverage, it's not just about you. You're actually investing into somebody else as well. And I think that's a very, I don't think we value that enough. And I think there's something really profound about being willing to help somebody else in that way as well. So, it is bigger than just you and your needs.
Yeah. And we're going to end with this, one of my favorite quotes.
It's a double ending.
From Archimedes.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a great quote. Archimedes, he said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." It's brilliant. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to put it, and I can move the whole world. And that is a word to you today. You're trying to do great things. You want to do amazing, press in and see the world changed. You need a lever. You need something to stick it. And when you find that lever, when you begin to learn the art of leverage, you can begin to make a change and make an impact in the world. So give it a shot. Go for it. Fight through the pain, and it's going to be worth it in the long run. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.